We are live. We are live. Welcome, 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 everyone. Thank you so much for coming in and for joining us on this another Lunch and Learn. It's Friday and it is the 7th day of June. And we are back here with another of our Lunch and Learn. And with me is my co host, Dr. Siegfried Howell, and he's a life happiness and relationship consultant. He's also a master life coach, and he coaches and he equips men and the women they love who struggle with internal, intimate, and professional relationships. And he's also available for corporate leadership and management training and personal development. Dr. Howell is also the author of many books. I believe Dr. Howell has gone over 20 books already, and he is still going. Dr. Howell, thank you so much for being here with me today. And I am yours truly, Dr. Janice Brooks. I'm a leadership consultant and coach, part of the Maxwell team of leadership coaches and consultant certified. I am also a life strategist, wearing many hats, I said, temperament counselor, and I'm also a Bible teacher. I'm a pastoral counselor as well. And I am available for corporate leadership, management, and development training. I am also the host of the Fireside Chatter program that I host each Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Zoom. And you can look out for that on the medias each week. I want to welcome you back to our Lunch and Learn today. And we are talking about developing next level leaders through authority. Developing next level leaders through authority. And this is really a very important topic because life continues to turn. Life does not stay stagnant or the same every day. And the saying goes that the future belongs to those who prepare for it. And as I said, no one is immortal. We only have one immortal, and that is God. And so it's crucial to prepare the next generation of leaders. And young leaders are the key to ensuring that the continuity of organization and their legacy go for years to come. And we cannot really underestimate the importance of this topic, the importance of cultivating future leaders who can take on some responsibilities or more responsibilities for that matter. And they can lead effectively and, ensure that the organization goes into the long term. And this is why we believe that this topic is an important, if not critical one, that we develop young leaders and next level leaders so that they can move the organization or the culture or wherever they are into the next years to come, the future. But before I go to that, today I wanted to just highlight, because every week I take up a book or a few books, maybe read a paragraph or two or some chapters. And one of the books I took up this week, and I'm going to just show you a book I looked at this week. And it is called Leadership and Management Begins with You. Will you take the elevator or the stairs? And this is the book, and it is actually written by Dr. Siegfried Howell, my co-host. And Dr. Howell, before I ask you about why this book and the elevator and the stairs, there was at least two other books I took up this week. And many persons will probably not even remember this book. It was one of John Maxwell's earlier books, and it's called The 21 Most Powerful Minutes in a Leader's Day. The 21 Most Powerful Minutes in a Leader's Day. Powerful book. And don't forget, and this is not a paid announcement, don't forget the Leadership Bible. I read this Bible so often, and it's a Maxwell Bible too. It's the Maxwell Leadership Bible. There is a leadership lesson in this Bible for almost every chapter. But Dr. Howell, I'm back over to you because I want to know what you were thinking. Because when I looked at the topic and I said, take the elevator or the stairs. I'm going to tell you, Dr. Howell, I hate elevators. So maybe I would have answered, I'm not taking the elevator. I'm going to take the stairs. Maybe because I'm addicted to exercising. But what were you thinking about when you thought about this topic? Take the elevator or the stairs, leadership and management.
I was thinking about the fact that people, like in this day and age, we want everything quickly. We want everything fast. And the elevator is a faster way of going up. So when it comes to leadership and management, people want the job, but they may not have the expertise or the experience, or they might have the education, but they don't have the experience to go with it. And rather than get a mentor, they want to just jump right in and make a lot of mistakes and fumble their way through. And they create a lot of problems along the way. And so when I was thinking about how should I name the book after the book was finished, my brother-in-law, Calvin, he said to me, would you take compare it to the elevator and the stairs? Because everything worth doing is going to take time, and it's going to take some sweat, and it's going to take some hard work. They say that if you want to become an expert at anything, it's going to take about 10,000 hours to become an expert. And that works out on average to be between 3 to 5 years of daily grinding, daily working. And so what I was thinking was, if you want the nuts and bolts of leadership and you're willing to put the practices into play or into motion, this book will give you the nuts and bolts that you need in order to be an effective leader. But it's no frills and no thrills. It is all hard work, and it's all things that you can do to create a good toolkit that can help you along your task and along your pathway of leadership and management.
Wow, excellent, Dr. Howell. In other words, you're saying, take the path less traveled.
Yes.
Don't rush it to get there, because when you rush it, you miss so many things along the way.
Definitely.
Excellent point. We are here today for the next maybe 25 minutes or so, and we're talking about developing next level leaders. Dr. Howell, when we talk about developing next level leaders with authority, what comes to mind for you? What do you say this is?
What comes to mind is mortality. You brought that out at the beginning. None of us is going to live forever. And so we have to make sure that there are people that are in the trenches that can replace us when our time has expired. I have a lot of friends that died between the ages of 45 and 55. I have about 10 friends that died from heart attacks. And you would think, man, 45 to 55, that's not really old. But suppose they were in the leadership positions and they died, and no one expected them to die, and there was nobody there to take their place. But there's things, there's strategies, there are implementations, and there are resources that particular company has that only those people were privy to. How does that hurt the company if there's no one who knows the ins and outs that they know? Now, let me make it a little simpler. At my church, when I first got to my church in 1995, there was an old lady by the name of Miss Jones, and she had so many recipes of things that she could make. She could make a beautiful red velvet cake. She can make beautiful chicken, whether it was vegan chicken, vegetarian chicken, or the regular in-bone chicken. Her dishes were phenomenal, but she refused to share any of her recipes with anyone, even family members. And then she up and died. And she took all of that information with her. And so when I think about next level leadership, I'm thinking about, what is it that you are the only person that is 100% efficient at doing, that must be passed on to the next generation of leadership, of management. And so I'm thinking about creating flexible leadership. So you have taken classes in grad school and even in post-grad school that gives you the baseline of what a leader or a manager should know. But how flexible and adaptable are you when you go into a new situation? Are you able to assimilate, or are you stuck into that educational or academia way of thinking? Can you modify? Can you be coached? Can you be mentored into what that company needs? Or are you one of those leaders that say, this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're going to continue to do it? Like the Blockbusters, like the Kmart's, and like the the Woolworths that have all closed down, like the Toys R Us that have all closed down. You know, these were companies that had, and I want to go even one step further, and maybe we can touch on this a little later, but why is it, and I know that you know about this, people from the islands, we've been using Skype to communicate with people all around the world. Because that's how we can keep in touch with people at home. But why is it when COVID came, Zoom came out of the way? How did Skype drop the ball and Zoom took up residence in that one little arena? And that's what we're talking about, next level leadership. Learning how to take what you already have and adapt it. Because there's no way that Zoom should have taken over Skype, because Skype was there for decades, helping international people in America talk to people at home. What are your thoughts on that?
Dr. Howell, you have literally, you have touched on maybe 5-10 different points in your few minutes. You talked about flexibility. I hear you touching on creativity. You touched on adaptability, which are some of the ones that I was going to mention. But you even alluded to my first point that I'm going to make, which is empowerment also, because it is so important that leaders recognize, as we said before, that they are not here to last forever. And so developing next level leaders is just, let us say, the way to go. And you used an example, which I had an exact example similar to that in my time in leadership, where one of my best, and when I say best, my top business development officer was killed one morning. When I was on my way to work, I got a call that he was killed. Now, that was my top officer at the time. He had numerous responsibility in his portfolio at the time, some half completed, quarter completed, whatever. What would we do if other persons or leaders were not trained to carry on, to pick up the mantle and carry on? What would we have done? And so it is so important. Empowerment is what I want to mention today. And I talked about John Maxwell, and not because I'm a John Maxwell certified, why I'm beating on John Maxwell, Dr. Maxwell, so much in my talk today. But Dr. Maxwell has a book, and it's called Developing Leaders Around You. And in that book, he talked, Dr. Howell, about the E's. I think it's 3 or 4 E's, or some E's of developing leaders. And I mentioned this one, which is empowerment, because empowerment is critical. Leaders have to empower others by granting them autonomy and responsibility and decision-making power, so that they can grow from where they are, so that they can take ownership. I believe that in this day and age, leaders should be, I hate to say educated, but they should be more educated than to be continuing with micromanaging at this time. And release leaders to take authority in the area where, or when I say release, I mean empower, because that's the point I'm trying to make right here, or making right here. Empower leaders to take the reign, Stop micromanaging. Give them the responsibilities that they need to excel in their work, in their roles. Allow them to build on their strength. And that is how you create these next level leaders. You develop them. For example, I mentioned in one of the lives that went by that look at what they have the highest abilities and strengths in. If it is collaboration or inspiration, allow them probably to be a team leader, and allow them to inspire the team and to pull the team together to work towards a common goal. That is how you empower them to be able to be the best leaders. When you step away, or not even when you step away, you allow them to be the best leaders as a no. But Dr. Howells, as we talk about empowerment, what are some other ways to develop next level leaders? What are some other ways? I know you mentioned the adaptability and the creativity and others. What are some other ways to develop next level leaders?
One of the ways that I believe a good leader can develop their subordinates is through, like you said, giving authority or autonomy over some subset of a project that needs to be done or area that needs to be governed, but then giving them feedback. And I'm talking about positive feedback. I'm talking about in-depth feedback that is in a way that grows and not demeans. And some form of assessment where there are goals, short-term goals along the way. So individuals that are being groomed to take over can see their progress over a period of 6 months or a year or 2 years or 3 years. They can see, okay, we have 4 to 5 different checkpoints that you have to master before you get this end certificate or before you get totally 100% empowerment. So I might empower you 25% until you get to a certain point. Then I empower you another 25%. So now you're at 50% empowerment. And now you're at 75% empowerment, and then get you to 95%. And 95% will be where you get evaluated to make sure that there were no balls dropped along the way, or make sure that there were no areas that were missed. So that when I release you, or when you are released to that particular area where you have total autonomy or authority, now you have 100% of what you need. Because the worst thing you can do, and me being a martial artist, I remember one time I was in martial arts class and I got my black belt, and my teacher said to us, hey, why don't you come take me on and see if you, so I can see what you need help with. And I said to him, are you sure you're ready for me? Because I was in my 40s, he was in his 70s. And I was saying, are you sure you're ready for me? And he said to me, I have not given you all of my tricks. And so my thing is, how many times in leadership do we not give our subordinates everything? And what does that do over a decade? Over half a century, over a century? So you have companies that have been around for 100 years. Suppose they started out with a certain standard, but all the leaders along the way left something off because they wanted to have one more bag in their toolkit that their subordinates didn't know. So if there was a hostile takeover, they can say, well, I still know this and nobody knows this but me. And so one of the things about leadership is the person who's in charge cannot be so self-centered that they intentionally leave things out just so they can be needed. And so to give up that power is one of the hardest things that a lot of leaders know. When do they walk away? When do they retire? When do they become consultants and no longer in charge of the day-to-day? And that is one of those things that you have to look up, and not to pull too much, but John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid. At some point in time, a leader will hit the top of their potential. And if you stay there without growing, all you're doing is starting to hinder the growth of the company or the growth of that department. So you have to learn how to either grow or remove yourself.
Wow, Dr. Howell, you're touching on some really excellent points, because when you talk about holding on, last week we talked about manipulation, and some of those holding on to the reins and not wanting to uh, train others and teach others to take over is a form of manipulation, because you believe that I can hold on to this as long as I can keep this reign. And then when you leave, the business or the company goes under because
Yes.
you have not trained anyone to really step in because of how you use this power play to
Yeah,
hold
and
on
you know
to
what? In the 70s, that used to be something that people looked at as, yeah, I walked away and the whole company fell down. I think
it.
Levi Coker was one of those type of leaders like that, and where when he walked away, there weren't people who knew how to do what he did,
Wow.
and because a lot of companies fell in the 90s and early 2000s, they started to change the way leadership was looking. So now they wanted to develop more leadership versus one authoritative person who would disseminate all of their ideas, and everything was based on their idea. But with the advancement in technology and information, it is hard for one person over 30 years to be at the top of the game. So you have to give some of that reign off to other people, or the company is going to fall anyway because you're going to become ineffective.
Indeed. And it leads me to the point I want to make to Dr. Howell, just to add to what you said. And I'll tell this quick story just to bring out my point, because recently a friend of mine taught me how to start compositing. And I always wanted to have my own little organic garden for myself. And so I decided that I'm going to start this thing. And to tell you the honest truth, I have about 5 or 6 nice little plants. But one thing I noticed recently was one of those plants, because they're in the light on the balcony and the sun faces them most of the time, I find that one of them was really getting droopy. And so I went out there one morning, because I usually go and talk with them sometimes. And I went out one morning and I said, you know what, let me take this one up. Let me change the environment. I brought it in and I put it on the kitchen counter. I brought it inside, I put it on the kitchen counter. And I can tell you, in 3 days, this plant made a total turnaround, Dr. Howell. And so the point is, environment is critical to developing new leaders.
Definitely.
We have to create, as leaders, we have to create the right environment for them to be able to grow and to flourish. And what are some of the things that can cause the environment to not grow? You talk about several of them already: holding on to power, micromanaging, manipulation, not delegating. There are so many things that can cause the environment to be stagnant, and the leaders not grow. And just like that plant I mentioned there, that did not flourish in the too much sun, leaders can find themselves becoming stagnant in the wrong environment. And on the other hand, things like challenges and chaos and frustration. Sometimes we believe that these environments are wrong environment, but sometimes these environments can push them to the point where they're able to break free and become the best of leaders. I give you another quick story. My a family member of mine was going into the army recently, and my sister, who is his grandmother, she started to worry. She worried every single day about him going into the army. And I'm saying, why are you worried about him? Well, he's not going to be able to keep up with all this rigor and all of these things. But I said to her, stop it, because it is these kind of environments sometimes that build them, that develop their resistance and their perseverance and the tenacity and the real building up that they need as young leaders to flourish. So we just have to know the environment that as young leaders, we have to create the environment for them to flourish. Dr. Will, I want to mention one more point because I like to come from the Bible sometimes. I remember the story of Ezekiel when God sent Ezekiel into the valley of dry bones, and he said, he actually asked him the question, can these dry bones live? The scripture actually said they were strewn all over the valley and they were very, very dry. It was chaos and disorder. But the lesson here was that those environments sometimes gives you the power to break out and to break free. In that lesson of Ezekiel, God said to him, prophesy to the dry bones. In other words, speak over them and tell them to arise and to live. So leaders can use the same example. If there is a chaotic environment, speak the right thing to the next level leaders. Show them how to grow. Tell them what to do. Mentor them. Coach them. Guide them so that they can be uplifted from the environment in which they are at point in time. And I'm moving on because I know we're almost out of time. Dr. Howell, as we talk, strategies are important in every area of life. What are some strategies that you would give to develop next level leaders?
That's a very interesting question. It takes me back to Moses. When you look at Moses, Moses was trained in leadership in the household of Pharaoh. And so he was given what was called or thought of as top-notch leadership. But when God said to him, hey, I'm going to need you to do some leadership for me, God said to him, I'm going to have to take you to become a shepherd, because when you deal with my people, you're going to need some things that you didn't learn from Pharaoh's school. You didn't learn patience. You didn't learn some of those things that were needed for being compassionate and empathetic towards people. And so God had to give Moses 40 years of training in his form of leadership. So a lot of times we might think that we are ready for a particular job, but we have to understand that every environment is going to take a little bit of you changing and turning things around. Another thing that Moses did not even learn from God. So Moses learned some stuff from Egypt. He learned patience from God. But one thing he did not learn was how to delegate. He learned that from Jethro, because he was trying to lead all of those Israelites by himself. And Jethro said, no, what you need to do is to break it up into different sections so you're not wearing yourself all the way down. So there are things that God does not give us because we need to find it from another source. And then there are things that our education gives us, but it's not enough to get us where we will be going. So adaptability is one of the most important things. If you listen to Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, one of the things that he said was getting the right people on the bus is not about getting the most educated people on the bus, but the most like-minded people on the bus. And he said that that's the most important, because what you don't want is a team of people with 1 to 2 people always bringing contention and disharmony in the plans that you want to move forward in. He said it's easier to train someone whose mind is adaptive and they have similar beliefs and values than a person who is educated but hard-headed.
Wow. Educated but hard-headed. That point drill home. That point drill home, Dr. Howell, because indeed that is a challenge to really moving forward with the next level leadership development. I want to just add to what you have said about the strategies, because it's not because I'm into strategy and I love strategies. I personally believe that strategies should be like water. We drink it every day to survive, and we should have a strategy ready for every situation. You know, when I think about wars, Dr. Howell, wars are not won by just the strength of the army that go out there. You can't just go and say these are strong men and we are going to win the war. No, You have to have a set of strategies that they employ in order to win this war. And it is in every aspect of life. It is biblical. God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh day. Not just that. At the end of each day, he looked back at what he did and he said, it is good. The Bible says he said, and it is good. You see, I believe that's a strategy. There are many strategies wrapped up in that, because one strategy is to tell us that rest is a strategy. Because if you don't rest, you're not going to regain the power, regain the essence of your strength to move again. So that is actually a strategy. And the other part of it, I think also is a strategy, is using thankfulness and gratitude to become more productive. You have to incorporate all of these things in building leaders as you go along. When I say building leaders, when I think about gratitude and thankfulness, many times, Dr. Howell, we forget the part about celebrating success and achievements and giving people thanks for what they have done. Come in and say, thank you for getting through yesterday. We did it. It was a rough day. Or I thank you for carrying on when I wasn't here last week. We take some things for granted and don't even realize that those are strategies that we can use to really empower and lift the next level leaders so that they can feel that they are valued and they are doing something here that makes a difference and that there's someone who cares about them, their personal development. So we are going to rush along because we're gone all the way over. Dr. Howell, the other thing is equipping leaders is also a strategy, because when we equip them with the necessary skills and the tools for them to succeed, then we literally put them on a track to run in. And I talk about the encouragement. When we encourage them, back in Jamaica, we used to say encouragement sweeten labor. When we encourage them, we boost their morale, we reinforce them, we motivate them, and we send them forth to shine. What are your closing thoughts on this topic, Dr. Howell?
My closing thoughts on this topic is I want to say one thing that we didn't talk about so far, and that is we are responsible as leaders, even if we're the subordinate leaders, to self-development and learning. Because if you look at the story of the 10 virgins, there were 5 smart and 5 foolish. The only difference between the 5 smart and the 5 foolish was resourcefulness. The 5 foolish virgins, they were equally as prepared. They showed up, they had their lamps, they had oil, but they never brought extra. And what I want to say is our extra is our continual learning, our continual motivation to better ourselves. Because without the ability to better yourself, eventually you get passed over, you get passed along. Like everyone comes right by you, and you wondering, why am I not why am I not getting a promotion? Why am I getting left behind? Why aren't people coming to me for advice? And it's because you reached your pinnacle and you refuse to move further. You hit your lid and you became limited by your lid rather than raising the lid. And so at the end of the day, what I want to bring home is this. Once you get the job that you want, and once you get the leadership or management position that you want, you cannot stop your thirst for knowledge and learning, because that will be the oil that is extra that will take you through the difficult times. You don't know how many times a book that you read today might help you tomorrow. So as a leader, you must continually feed your mind so that you will be adaptable, so that you will be current, and so that you will be willing to keep listening to new ideas and applying it to your toolkit.
Excellent way to take us out of here, Dr. Howell. And there's very little that I can add. As I said just a few days ago, I believe in an article, I noted that developing high performance teams or our next level leaders cannot be done by a low performing company or low performing leadership, because in this case it's like attract like, and if you're low performing, you can't develop low performing team or leadership. And so it is important that leaders, as you said, develop first. They take the lead first. They go first. They make sure that they are developed in order to develop others. They have to identify who are these next level leaders that they want to develop, what are the criterias, and what are the methods they're going to use to do the development. We know that there is no discount in coaching, training, and mentorship. These work all the time. And then they have to consider, what are the goals that they're going to be using and how are these going to be tracked. And they're also going to have to decide, how do we do this? Is it going to be on the job training, shadowing of other leaders, working in areas of that they have the most authority? How will they do this to develop them? And don't forget, as we have gone through the session, celebrate along the way every goal and every achievement, and then release them to take on higher responsibilities. Too often we train leaders, but we still hold them back. We don't release them so that they can go forth and shine. It is important, if not critical, to develop young leaders, next level leaders, and to release them to fly. Thank you so much again for joining us for this another Friday Lunch and Learn. And don't forget, if you want to talk about leadership and management, taking the elevator or the stairs, this is Dr. Howell's book, Leadership and Management Begins with You. And please don't forget, if you want lessons in resilience, perseverance, determination, don't forget to grab a copy of my book. It's called Anchored by Purpose. I'm sure your life is going to be changed when you read this book, because you will understand the true essence of resilience and determination. Thank you once again. God bless you as you have a great weekend, and join us again next Friday, same time, 12 noon Eastern time, as we be back here with another Lunch and Learn. God bless you.
Bye-bye.